The summoning Dane Keller never liked surprises. But when two alien guards in full armor arrived at his spaceport office with a sealed order, he knew something serious had happened. Commander Zariah of the Zalari Dominion requests your presence. Alone, one guard said, handing him a small, glowing tablet. No reason, no explanation, just a time, a location, and strict instructions. No weapons. No companions. No communication devices. Dane was one of Earth's top engineers and exobiologists. He had worked with alien technology before, even visited Zelrai research stations, but a direct summons from Commander Zaria. That had never happened before, not to any human. He climbed aboard the shuttle provided for him, noticing how quiet and sterile it was. No windows, no pilots in sight, only a smooth silver interior and a low hum that vibrated through. His chest, the shuttle launched into orbit quickly, and before he knew it, the blackness of space surrounded him. Minutes passed, or maybe hours' time felt strange. When the shuttle finally docked with the Zelari flagship hovering near Jupiter, the doors hissed open slowly. Two more guards waited, taller than humans, with shimmering black eyes and pale scaled skin. They didn't speak, only nodded. And Dane followed them silently down long metal hallways. Everything was quiet, too quiet. No other crew members, no noise. Only the sound of their boots echoing off the walls. Dane's heart pounded. But he kept his face calm. He tried to remember everything he knew about Commander Ziriashi was famous among Zalari, and feared across many systems. Brilliant, strict, and dangerous. They stopped in front of a wide chamber door. Glowing softly with violet light, one guard placed his hand on the sensor pad, and the doors slid open with a hiss. Dane stepped inside, and the doors closed behind him, sealing him in. The room was warm, filled with soft light and strange, floating symbols. At the far end stood her. Tall, elegant, and powerful, Commander Zariah was even more intimidating in person than the story said. She wore no battle armor today, only a long dark robe that shimmered like water, her eyes golden and glowing, locked onto his the moment he entered. "Dane Keller," she said, her voice smooth but commanding. "You came, I didn't have a choice," Dane replied, trying to keep his tone neutral. He glanced around the room, nervous but curious. "Why am I here?" he asked. Zariah stepped forward, her movements slow, graceful. Like a predator circling its prey, she stopped only a few feet away from him, towering over him by at least a head. "You are here," she said softly, "because I require a full body inspection?" Dane blinked, shocked. I'm sorry, a what?" She didn't repeat herself, only stared. He hesitated, confused, unsure if this was some kind of test. He looked down at the scanner bag slung over his shoulder, then back at her. "Do you mean an actual medical scan?" he asked Zariah. Tilted her head, her eyes glowing brighter. "My body is changing," she said, her voice low. "None of my people can explain it, and my doctors fear me." Now Dane was interested. His fear started to shift into curiosity. He opened his bag and pulled out a handheld scanner. "All right," he said carefully. "Let me take a few basic scans." He moved slowly, starting from her shoulders. The device beeped softly, showing strange readings. Her temperature was off. The charts, her cellular activity, unstable. More than that, her DNA was in motion, literally rewriting itself. "This can't be right," Dane whispered, double-checking the data. "You have human genetic markers." Zariah closed her eyes. Breathing deeply, "Yes," she said. "It began after we entered Earth's orbit, and after I touched a piece of Earth soil with my bare hand." Dane stepped back, shocked. "You're changing into something else," he muttered. "But why bring me here?" Zariah opened her eyes slowly, and for the first time, there was something vulnerable in them. "You are the only human with clearance," science knowledge, and a clean biosignature. She took another step closer, and her voice dropped to a whisper. If anyone finds out what I'm becoming, they will destroy me. Dane stared at her, heart pounding. This was no ordinary medical scan. This was a secret that could shake both Earth and the Zalari Dominion. And he had just stepped into the middle of it. The chamber lights dimmed slightly. And outside the walls, a low alarm echoed through the ship's huddle. But rising, Zariah's hands trembled slightly. But her face remained calm. She looked him in. The eyes, help me, she said again, or leave and forget what you saw. Dane looked down at the scanner, then back at her face. Something told him this was only the beginning, and walking away was no longer an option. Dane had scanned hundreds of alien species in his life, but nothing had ever felt like this. Commander Zariah stood in front of him, tall and silent. Her eyes fixed on him like she could hear his thoughts. The scanner in his hand vibrated again soft, but constant, as if even it was confused. Your vitals are spiking, Dane muttered, checking the data pulse. Temperature, even your energy levels. They're reacting to me, not to the machine. Zariah remained still, but her breathing deepened slightly. My body only responds when you are near, she said calmly. When others enter the room, it grows cold. That statement made Dane shiver. Not just because of what she said, but because it was true. The readings only stabilized when he was close. He stepped back a few paces to test it, immediately. The scanner beeped in warning, showing signs of internal strain in Zariah's body. He moved closer again, and just like before, the readings improved. That's not possible, he whispered. You're reacting to me like I'm bonded. Zariah finally turned to face the glowing wall at the side of the room. Her voice now quieter. The Zelar once studied human DNA in secret, she said. We believed your species held strange potential energy hidden inside your blood. Dane frowned. That was just a theory, right? No, she replied, turning back. It was real, too real. She raised her hand, and the lights in the room flickered without her touching anything. My body is no longer purely Zalari. The air grew heavier, like gravity itself had changed. Zariah reached for a panel on the wall and tapped a sequence Dane couldn't understand. A small pod opened near the floor, revealing a crystal orb glowing with shifting colors. This was given to me after the first contact with Earth's surface. She said, I touched it without protection. The moment Dane looked at the orb, his heart skipped a beat. He recognized it, not the material, but the signature. The same energy used in forbidden Earth-Zalari hybrid experiments. You weren't supposed to have this, he said, stepping back. Earth banned all research involving that tech years ago. Zariah stepped closer, her golden eyes glowing again. They lied to you, she said firmly. Your governments agreed in secret. Your leaders signed the exchange contracts. Dane's mouth went dry. She was right. He remembered now rumors, whispers of something called Project Link. But those files were locked, erased, buried under red tape. He stared at her, trying to process everything. So your body. It's changing because of exposure to that energy, he said. But why me? Why am I the only one who can stabilize you? Zariah looked at him for a long moment, then lowered her voice. Because your DNA matches the origin code. Dane blinked. What? Your ancestor, she said, was one of the first humans chosen for the experiment. His genes were passed to you quietly, without your knowledge. Now it made sense why she called him, why no other human was chosen. Not just because of his science background, but because something inside him was already linked to her. Dane looked down at his hand, still holding the scanner. It wasn't just a scan, it was a mirror. Whatever was happening to her, a part of it lived inside him, too, suddenly. Zariah gasped and staggered back. Her body trembled violently, a strange ripple moving through her skin. She dropped to one knee, clutching her chest. Her robe shimmered like liquid, then faded into patches of glowing flesh. Dane rushed forward, catching her before she collapsed fully. Her skin felt warm, too warm, like fire beneath the surface. Her heartbeat was racing, her veins glowing with soft blue light. "What's happening?" Dane asked, panic rising. "I don't know," Zariah whispered, her voice weak. "My body is rejecting itself." The scanner went wild in Dane's hand, flashing red. He looked at the screen cells breaking down, regrowing, mutating in real time. Her body was in crisis, and he didn't know how to stop it. He laid her gently on the medical table, hands shaking. He had to act fast. He activated the emergency healing module on the wall, but it blinked. Unauthorized DNA detected, access denied. Of course, Dane muttered, frustrated. The system wouldn't treat her now, not as a Zelari, not as a human. She was something new. And the machine didn't recognize her anymore. Zariah reached up and touched his face, her hand trembling. "You have to finish the inspection," she whispered. "Only then will the link complete." Dane stared at her, stunned. "Link? What link?" Zariah closed her eyes, her body glowing softly now. "The bond between us is incomplete. I need you to finish it." Then she lost consciousness. Dane stood there, frozen. In his hands was a scanner. On the table lay the most powerful woman in the Zelari Empire, half alien, half something else, and she had just told him. They were bonded, outside the chamber. Doors locked with a loud hiss, and in the hallway, soft footsteps approached, slow and deliberate. Someone else had arrived, and they weren't here to help. The air inside the chamber had grown heavier, not just because of Zariah's collapsing body, but because Dane knew something larger was happening here, something bigger than him. He stood still for a moment, listening to the silence, feeling it press on his chest like a weight. Then he moved fast. He tapped the scanner's emergency override, sliding his ID chip into the port. The screen blinked, access granted. Level 9 human clearance. Zariah had said he was linked to something. To some secret program. He needed proof. A small panel opened on the chamber wall. Inside, rows of glowing orbs hovered, data cores. He reached in and grabbed the one with the golden shimmer, the same color as Zariah's eyes. Plugging it into the scanner, he braced himself. The screen lit up, flooding with encrypted files. Project link classified. Dane's fingers trembled as he tapped through them. The truth spilled out in glowing letters, line after line. Years ago, Earth and the Zelari Dominion had signed a secret agreement, not for war, not for peace, but for evolution. Selected humans had donated genetic samples to be mixed with Zelari DNA. The goal? Create a hybrid species, stronger, adaptable, emotionally intelligent, a being that could understand both sides. A bridge between two galaxies, but the project had failed, so they said. Most hybrids couldn't survive the merging. Their bodies broke down, their minds shattered. All test subjects were declared lost. Except one. Dane's breath caught as he read the last file. Surviving lineage identified. Subject H37 gives descendant, Dane Keller. His face turned pale. He was part of the experiment, not by choice, but by blood. His great-grandfather had volunteered. And now, generations later, he was the key. Zariah hadn't chosen him randomly. Her body was reacting to him because their DNA was connected. She wasn't just sick, she was changing, evolving, completing the hybrid cycle that started decades ago. Suddenly, a soft groan escaped from the medical table. Dane turned and saw Zariah's fingers twitch. Her body glowed faintly, her eyes fluttering open. "Zariah," he whispered, kneeling beside her. "I know now what they did to you and what they did to me." She looked at him weakly, her voice barely a breath. "You saw the files." He nodded slowly. "They used us," he said, without telling us anything. Zaraya's eyes were filled with pain. But not just physical, they told me I was chosen to lead. She said, but I was chosen to change. Her body trembled again, and Dane grabbed her hand. You're not dying, he said. You're becoming what they feared, something new. Something powerful. A sharp sound echoed from the hallway, metal footsteps. Dane jumped to his feet, quickly hiding the data orb back in the wall. The chamber doors hissed, and a figure stepped inside. It was a Zalarai high officer, dressed in silver armor, his face cold and sharp. He looked at Zaraya, then at Dane. You've seen too much, the officer said calmly. She is no longer fit to command. And you? Our liability? Dane stepped in front of Zaraya, shielding her. She's not a threat, he said. She's what your people hoped to create. She is the future. The officer didn't blink. Our kind doesn't fear the future, he said, drawing a slender blade that shimmered with energy. We erase mistakes before Dane could react. The officer lunged forward. But Zaraya rose suddenly, her arm outstretched, her body glowing like fire. With a wave of her hand, a shockwave pulsed through the room, sending the officer flying into the wall. Unconscious, Dane stared at her, stunned. You controlled energy, he said in awe. Zaraya looked down at her hands, her voice shaking. I don't know how, she whispered, but I felt you inside me. Their connection wasn't just biology anymore. It was something deeper, a bond that crossed species, power, and purpose. Help me off this table, she said. Dane helped her stand, though her legs still trembled. We have to leave, he said. They'll send more. Zaraya nodded. There's a maintenance route, she said weakly, through the lower decks. As they moved toward the hidden hatch, alarms began to echo through the ship. Red lights flashed. Overhead, voices on, come shouted orders in Zalari tongue. Dane turned to her as they reached the hatch. Why didn't you just destroy them all? He asked. You have the power. She paused, then whispered. Because if I become like them, then I lose everything human in me. Dane looked at her, and for a moment, he saw not an alien commander, but a woman caught between two worlds. Choosing the harder path, not violence, but hope, they slipped into the shadows together, leaving the chamber behind, two fugitives, one secret, and a future no one was ready for. Asterisk, the hidden hatch creaked open, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with faint blue lights. Dane stepped in first, scanning for motion, while Zaraya followed. Slowly, one hand pressed to the wall for support. Her breathing was shallow, her body still glowing faintly like a dim lantern in the dark. Behind them, the chamber lights turned red, and sirens roared as the ship shifted into lockdown mode. No, we're gone, Dane said quietly. Zaraya nodded, sweat glistening on her forehead. They'll send seekers, she whispered. They hunt anything that carries my signature. The tunnel twisted and dropped steeply, forcing them to crawl through tight curves and power conduits, even in her weakened state. Zaraya moved like a warrior, determined, silent, graceful. In her struggle, Dane admired her strength, even now. Even when her own body betrayed her, she was more than a commander, more than a hybrid. She was fighting to be herself. After nearly 15 minutes, the tunnel opened into a forgotten loading bay. Dim lights flickered above rows of unused escape pods covered in dust. This section was shut down years ago, Zaraya said. Before I took command, they moved quickly, Dane inspecting each pod, trying to find one that still worked. Most were dead, but one hummed weakly when he touched the controls. He pried open its access panel, sparks flying as he bypassed old safety locks. Zaraya leaned on the side of the pod, her body shaking, her legs ready to give in. Suddenly, her knees buckled, and she collapsed. Dane rushed to her side, catching her before she hit the ground. Her skin burned with heat, and her veins pulsed with deep violet light. "Stay with me," he said, panic rising. She opened her eyes weakly, whispering, "It's time. The bond must be completed." "I don't know how," Dane said. "What do I do?" She lifted a trembling hand and placed it on his chest, directly over his heart. "You accept me," she whispered. "Accept what I'm becoming." He felt something pass between them, not just energy, but a deep current of understanding. Like their thoughts had briefly merged, memories not his own flashed through his mind to her. First battle, her promotion, her loneliness. Then something brighter, a vision of him, standing beside her on a world they'd never seen. Holding her hand, not as strangers, but as one. The pod's console suddenly lit up, its systems recognizing a dual signature, human and Zalari. Merged, launch authorization accepted. The screen blinked. Dane pulled open the hatch, gently helping her inside, then climbed in next to her as he sealed the door. The ship above them roared with activity, and footsteps thundered outside the bay. A robotic voice warned unauthorized escape in progress. Deploying interceptors. Too late, the pod shot out like a bullet, slamming into space with such speed it knocked the breath out of Dane's lungs. Outside the window, the black of space flashed with red Solari fighters scrambling in pursuit. Inside the pod, Zariah clung to consciousness, her breathing ragged. Dane grabbed the medkit and injected her with an energy stabilizer from Earth's experimental, but all he had, her glow steadied for a moment. Her body no longer shaking. "We're not safe yet," he muttered, checking the star chart. Nearest planet with atmosphere, but Earth had defenses. And they would not welcome a rogue Zalari pod flying straight in, unless... He reached for the old Earth beacon embedded in his wrist, a legacy tool from his days working for human defense. He activated the emergency code. "This is Dane Keller, human engineer, priority code green, requesting safe entry. Do not fire." The beacon pulsed once, then again, no answer. Seconds later, a new alarm blared. The pod's rear sensor showed to Zalari interceptors gaining on them. "Fast. We can't outrun them," Dane whispered. He turned to Zariah, who was barely conscious. "If we're going down," he said, "we do it together." Zariah opened her eyes just slightly, and for the first time, she smiled, soft, tired, but real. "I would rather die." "As myself," she said. Dane smiled back, gripping her hand tightly. "Then let's make sure we live instead." He twisted the control panel sharply, rerouting emergency energy into the pod's rear thrusters. The pod shook violently, metal creaking, the engine groaning. The Zalari ships closed in, one launching a plasma charge. It missed. Barely grazing the left wing, the pod tumbled through Earth's upper atmosphere, flames licking the window as friction ignited the hull. Inside, Dane wrapped his arms around Zariah, shielding her as alarms screamed in every direction. Then sudden silence. The pod crashed hard into a snow-covered forest, trees cracking, metal ripping. Then stillness. Dane opened his eyes slowly, smoke filling the air. He was alive, bruised, but breathing. He turned to Zariah. She was unconscious, but still glowing. Still holding on, he stumbled out of the pod, snow crunching beneath his boots, and looked up at the falling sky. They had made it. But Earth was no longer the home he remembered, and they weren't alone, not anymore. The crash had torn a long path through the frozen forest. Metal pieces from the escape pod lay scattered across the snow. Still steaming, smoke rose slowly into the gray sky. Mixing with falling snowflakes, Dane pushed open the half-melted hatch and staggered out, his body sore. Clothes burned in places. He had survived, but he wasn't thinking about himself. His eyes immediately turned back inside. Zariah lay motionless, curled slightly, her skin glowing a soft lavender beneath torn robes. Snow was already blowing into the pod, landing on her warm body and melting instantly. "Soraya," Dane whispered, climbing back in and pulling her gently into his arms. "You're safe now." She didn't answer, but her fingers twitched. Her skin burned with heat like a furnace hidden under fragile glass. Dane grabbed the emergency blanket and wrapped it around her. He didn't know if she was dying or changing again. Outside, the wind howled louder. Snow swirling in a blizzard of white. Night was falling fast, and the cold was cruel. He had to find shelter and soon. Dane lifted Soraya, cradling her like a sleeping child, and stepped into the forest. Every step through the deep snow felt heavier. He had no map, no signal, no idea where he was, just endless white and the sound of the wind trying to bury them. He walked for nearly 20 minutes, teeth chattering, arms aching. Then he spotted an old wooden hunting cabin, half buried in snow, the roof sagging, but still standing. With one last push, he kicked the door open, rushed inside, and laid Soraya gently on a worn leather cot. The cabin was freezing, but dry. He found a small heater, old but functional, and started it with a spark from his wrist. Chip. Warmth slowly returned to the air. Soraya's glow began to steady, still dim, but pulsing like a slow heartbeat. Dane knelt beside her, brushing damp hair from her face. "Stay with me, Commander," he said softly. "You didn't fight all the way here just to give up now." Her lips moved slightly, breath shallow. He leaned closer and heard her whisper, "I see the stars inside you." His heart tightened. He didn't understand the words, but he felt them. This wasn't just survival it was connection. Something deeper than blood or duty. He gently wrapped another blanket around her, then sat beside her, watching over her like a soldier on guard. Hours passed. The blizzard outside roaring like a beast trying to break through, and still she lay quiet, caught between two forms, Lilian and something new. As night deepened, Dane noticed something strange. The heater's energy core had gone dead long ago, yet the air inside the cabin was still warm. He looked at Soraya again and realized she was warming the room. Her body gave off a gentle, radiant heat. Not dangerous, but alive. Dane reached out and placed his hand on hers. For a moment, he felt a memory not his own, but hers, a dark Solari throne room. Her standing alone, praised by thousands, yet feeling nothing. A cold galaxy, full of duty, but empty of warmth. Until a moment, her first look at Earth from space. Her first step on soil. The first time she felt human emotion. He pulled his hand back, stunned. Their minds had touched briefly, like the bond between them had deepened without words. Suddenly, her eyes opened wide and glowing blue now. Not gold. She sat up slowly, blinking at her surroundings. "Where are we?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Earth," Dane replied. "We're safe for now." She looked around, confusion in her eyes. "This world. It smells like fire and cold at the same time." He chuckled softly. "That's winter." She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Dane caught her gently, holding her up. "You need rest," he said. "You've been through too much." Soraya looked at him, her voice quiet. "My body. It's not mine anymore." Dane shook his head. "It's still yours. It's just becoming something better." She stared at him, unsure. "Why are you helping me?" He hesitated, then said the truth. "Because I see you, not just the alien, not just the soldier. I see you, the one who chose mercy over power." Soraya's eyes shimmered, and for the first time since her transformation began, she smiled. It was small, uncertain, but real. Outside, the blizzard raged on, but inside the cabin, something new had formed. Not just safety, but trust, and neither of them knew it yet. But that trust would be tested soon because others had followed their trail. And Earth's silence would not last forever. The forest was quiet the next morning. Too quiet, no birds, no wind. Just the heavy stillness of snow piled on trees. Dane stood outside the cabin, scanning the sky with a pair of old binoculars he found in the shed. He didn't like what he saw. Thick cloud layers parted briefly, revealing a strange shimmer. He knew that shimmer. It was Zelari's stealth Tekka-cloaked ship. Silently hovering above Earth's atmosphere, they had found them. He went back inside, his face pale. Zariah sat on the edge of the cot, wrapped in a blanket, her skin still glowing. Faintly blue, she looked stronger now, but her eyes carried a storm of worry. "They're here, aren't they?" she asked quietly. Dane nodded. "I saw the distortion. It's a hunter ship, no bigger than a scout. But lethal." Zariah closed her eyes. "They'll be tracking my pulse signature," she said. "Not just by tech but through the bond." Dane looked confused. "Our bond?" She nodded. "It connects us beyond space, beyond shielding. Then I should leave." He said suddenly, "If they're tracking me through you, then maybe no." She interrupted firmly. "If you break the bond now, I'll die." Dane stared at her, stunned. "What?" She looked down at her hands, glowing slightly in the dim light. "My biology has changed too far. I am no longer fully Zelari, and not yet stable as human. You are the anchor, holding me together." A low rumble shook the cabin, and snow fell from the roof. Dane ran to the door and peered outside. The clouds were parting again, but this time, light beams streamed. "Down search beams, bright and burning. They've started a sweep," he said. "They're coming fast." Zariah stood up, her robe swaying like water as she walked. "I must face them," she said, voice steady but sorrowful. They were. "My crew, my people, they'll kill you," Dane snapped. "They think you're broken, corrupted, then I'll show them I'm not," she replied calmly. He looked at her, his voice low. "You don't have to prove anything to them. You're not their tool anymore." Zariah walked to him, placed her hand gently on his chest. "I was born a weapon, Dane," she whispered. "But you made me feel like something else." Her eyes softened, glowing blue with warmth. "I won't run anymore." The cabin began to shake, and outside, mechanical legs dropped from the sky's Zelari ground troops, silent and swift. They fanned out in formation, moving through the trees like shadows. Dane opened a panel in the wall and revealed an old human flare cannon. He smiled weakly. "I don't have alien weapons, but I can still throw fire." Zariah looked at him with admiration. "You are more dangerous than most warriors I've met." He nodded toward the door. "You sure about this?" Zariah stepped outside, her body glowing brighter now as the snow touched her skin. It evaporated instantly, leaving soft steam trails. Dane followed, flare cannon ready, his heart pounding in front of the cabin. The forest glowed red with enemy. Scanners, one by one, Zelari soldiers stepped into view. Weapons raised, but their eyes confused. They had expected a monster, not a woman who stood calm, peaceful, and glowing with life. Zariah raised her hand. "Not in defense, but peace. I am Commander Zariah," she said loudly, her voice echoing through the trees. "I am not infected, not broken. I am reborn." One soldier stepped forward, scanning her. His visor blinked rapidly, confused by the mixed readings. "She is not Zelari," he muttered. Another soldier whispered, "She has human energy." Murmurs spread among them. Then a deep voice echoed from above. It was the ship captain. Speaking through a descending drone, "Commander Zariah, by order of the Dominion Council, you are to be eliminated." Dane stepped beside her, pointing the flare cannon at the drone. "Try it," he said coldly. Zariah reached out and lowered his weapon. "I will speak for myself," she said, stepping forward alone. The soldiers parted, unsure. She walked to the center clearing and stood tall. Her arms raised. "I was created by your science," ordered. "To obey your rule, but I found something stronger. I found choice." A soldier dropped his weapon. Eyes wide, another knelt, unsure what to believe. But the drone above charged to blast its energy core, glowing like a star. Dane shouted, "Zariah, move." She didn't. Instead, she closed her eyes. And her glow flared like a wave of light. The energy from the drone hit her, then bounced off. Shattered into mist, she didn't flinch, didn't fall. The soldiers gasped, their visors blinking wildly. She had become something impossible, a living shield, powered by fusion of two species. One by one, the troops dropped their weapons and bowed, and the drone, now powerless, drifted to the ground, silent. Zariah turned back to Dane, her eyes full of tears. "I didn't destroy them," she whispered. "I showed them who I really am." Dane smiled, walking to her slowly. "You didn't need to destroy anything," he said. "You're already changing everything just by being here." Above them, the hunter ship began to rise. Leaving Earth's atmosphere, no longer hunting, no longer sure of its mission, and in the snowy forest below, a new alliance had begun, not through treaties or war, but through one human, one alien, and a bond that defied all rules. Snow fell gently across the forest clearing where silence had replaced battle. The soldiers who once came to destroy Commander Zariah now stood motionless, their weapons on the ground, their gazes locked on her glowing form. She didn't speak. Not yet. Her presence said everything. Beside her, Dane Keller stood with the human flare cannon still strapped to his side. But his hands relaxed now. Zariah looked at the kneeling soldiers, then slowly turned to the crashed Zelari drone. I still blinked weakly, waiting for orders from the Dominion Council. She approached it, her bare feet leaving steaming footprints in the snow, and placed her hand on the side of the drone's shell. "I will speak to them directly," she said quietly. A beam of light shot into the sky, connecting the drone to the mothership still hovering in orbit. Seconds later, a giant hologram appeared above the trees. It showed a cold, wrinkled Zelari male in ceremonial robes over Lord Vexum, the Dominion's senior strategist. He squinted at Zariah, then at Dane. "You defied us," he growled. "You bonded with a human. Let your body mutate into something unnatural." Zariah stepped forward, her voice calm but strong. "No," she said. "I became what you were too afraid to create. You wanted the perfect soldier. But I chose something else. I chose empathy." Dane stood tall. Beside her, "She's not a weapon anymore," he added. "She's hope. For both our kinds." Vexum sneered. "You speak like equals, but you are not." Zariah raised her hand, and her glow intensified. The very air around her shimmered like light off a river. "I am not Zelari anymore," she said, "and he is not just human. We are bonded not by force, but by choice." The image of Vexum flickered, then steadied. "You dare propose an alliance based on motion?" he asked. Dane stepped closer to the drone and looked into the camera. "You tried war," he said. "You tried silence, control, and experiments. Now try listening." There was a long pause, the snow still falling softly around them. Then the hologram vanished. No orders, no commands, just silence. The remaining soldiers looked to each other, unsure what to do. Then one stepped forward, removing his helmet, revealing young silver-gray skin and dark eyes full of wonder. "My brother died in the hybrid trials," he said to Zariah, "but I think he would have followed you." Zariah nodded slowly. "I carry them all with me," she whispered. Their failures were never their fault. The soldiers stepped back and saluted her not as a commander, but as a leader. Others followed, and soon the entire squad bowed once more. Not from fear, but respect. That night, back inside the cabin, Dane sat by the fire while Zariah stood at the window, watching the stars. Her skin still glowed faintly, but softer now, peaceful. The transformation inside her had stabilized. Her heartbeat steady, her energy no longer wild. "Do you miss it?" Dane asked. "The ship, your title, the control." She turned toward him, a gentle smile on her lips. "I thought I would," she said, "but now I know power without connection is just loneliness." He nodded, tossing another log into the fire. "Well, you'll get connection here," he said. "Humans are noisy, emotional, and very confusing." She laughed softly, her laugh like wind through crystal. "I think I'm ready," she said, "for noise, for confusion, for life." A knock came at the cabin door. Slow and respectful, Dane opened it to find two Earth envoys dressed in thermal gear. "We received your beacon," one said, nodding toward Zariah inside. "Is that her?" Dane looked back at her and smiled. "That's Commander Zariah," he said. "Or maybe just Zariah now." The envoys entered slowly, cautious but curious. Zariah greeted them with a slight bow. "I come not as an enemy," she said, "but as a bridge, by sunrise." The cabin had become a meeting point. Human diplomats and Zalari survivors sat together for the first time, not across battle lines, but beside one another. No guards, no threats, only the quiet beginning of something new. Zariah and Dane stood side by side as the sun broke through the trees, its golden light mixing with the soft blue glow still within her skin. Two worlds, two species, once divided by fear, now connected by choice. Dane looked at her, voice soft. "You think this will last?" Zariah took his hand gently. "It already has," she whispered. "It started the moment we stopped seeing each other as threats, and somewhere above, far beyond Earth's clouds, the stars began to shift. Not just light years away, but closer here, between two hearts that had changed the galaxy without firing a single shot."